Hello, another fine day here in August, toward the end of the month. This is MSB, your mad scientist of bonsai. I'm doing Serissas at this time of season, okay? Digging them, starting new pieces, creating my bonsai or landscape effects. But I'm sure you're wondering, what's wrong with that man just pointing the camera at the ground? Well, everything has a story. Everyone has a story. There's a story to be told, and I love stories, okay? Not untruths or lies, but stories. Anyway, that is basically the offspring, the offshoot, the remainders of my original Serissa. Nearly 30 years ago, I purchased several plants from a bonsai broker off of the Pacific coast of the U.S. and I planted this here out of that batch to always keep a reserve, okay? Years and years passed by. In fact, I wasn't even doing bonsai per se. I was out doing other things, including being a nurse in my local community. And I came back. I was cleaning up back here in the boon tulies, and I was reacquainted with this. And from this, we get this and other beautiful designs. These are root over rock Serissas, and as you can see, the roots are growing over the rocks. These grow outside year round. Those are seeds from the trident maple. You can see the roots right there. And this is just a quick video to show you some of the styles and designs that can be created from Serissa. For me, it's easy, not complex, not complicated, not difficult, but I've been doing this for years and years. I've been growing plants, you can say, all my life, and I'm not intimidated by growing plants. My shortcoming or intimidation is style. I'm not a stylist. I'm not a landscaper, because every time I put a plant in the ground, pretty soon it's going to be dug up, so I don't do landscaping. Now, from the beginning, these are cuttings, just a mass amount of cuttings. When I trimmed some of these or other plants, I took the cuttings, stuck it in a pot of whatever was available as far as the soil goes, nothing special. Stuck it someplace in a semi-shaded area, just made sure that it stayed moist enough, nothing special. If I want long roots, I create a deep growing area, whether it's in the ground or whether it's in a pot. I want long roots to do this with, and so I need the roots to grow long. And what I do here to really force those roots to grow long, I water it from the bottom. I'll sit this on the lid, for example, of a Tupperware bowl or a storage bin, or even a shallow pot or a pan, anything that will hold a little bit of water to often and continually keep the moisture at the bottom of the pot, so the roots will grow down. If you know, with this, there's not a really big issue, but on your typical tree or plant, if you want the roots to grow down, you have to force it to, because if the roots are being watered at the top, that's where it's going to be the happiest, and that's where your strongest roots will be, because you've got more oxygen at the surface versus the bottom of the pot. And of course, the roots will circle the pot. But this is what I do to create this. Or again, if I'm growing the plants in the ground, I'll make sure that the soil is deep enough, kind of like carrots or root vegetables. You know, you want those to be in a deep soil so that you can get what you want. Okay. And that's another plant that I'm growing. It's over here, just kind of out of the way on the side, and nice and simple. Right here, this in fact was a plant. I was here on the side just cleaning up and looking around, found a piece of leftover carving stone. I put these together, and this is right now, this is about a month old. Okay, you can see the roots coming through. You see how I've got it lashed here, and again, this is just months old, but I'll keep, you know, doing what I do, and pretty soon I'll reveal that by removing the tape. If I need to recover it and rewrap it, then I'll do it. This is one of the ways that I cover the roots when I'm working a new project. So this will be revealed here at any moment. It's 2021 now, and I have looked in that once this year. The roots were not progressing as well as I wanted to. So what I did was take these chunks of lava rock, put it around that flat flagstone there, put soil on it, and just decorated it with some moss. Why? To give more soil at the bottom so the roots can come down. You know, if the roots got a place to grow into, then the top roots will thicken up and develop better. So like I said, at some point here in the next weeks to month or so, I'll reveal this. If I like the roots, then I'll leave the plastic off. I'll leave the soil in place, and it will weather and be watered away as I'm doing my daily watering and fertilizing. These are fertilizer pellets. So I use that stuff, which is a poly coated or plastic coated time release fertilizer, or I'll use a water soluble liquid fertilizer. That is just a piece of a Serissa that I cut off of something and stuck it in that pot. Stuck it here where it could stay pretty moist on the top of this bin, and it's not a problem. Okay, simple and easy. This is a Yatsubusa Serissa, different from all the other plants. The leaves are elongated, the flowers are a very light pink tint to hue, and it will bleach out to a white pretty quickly, so you'll get a different tone to the flowers. So anyway, hold on. Oh, those are not Serissas. Those are jade plants. I just wired these and set them out here in the sun so that they can get as much sun as possible and rehydrate, and they're doing pretty well. So at any rate, that's just something I'm working on here. I'm not touching it physically, saying that I'm working on it, but I'm monitoring it after I set these up in these configurations to start regrowing and rehabbing themselves after I butchered on them for a while. Some nice setups, but I like this configuration the best because I had to be a little ingenious here. That drain tray, I've got aggregate in it, got a little stone on it. I've got this miniature pot with this relatively large piece of a jade in that little pot, and it is overbalanced. Okay, there's no way that pot is going to support this and stand up. So what I've done is drill a hole in the back of that, use some bonsai wire to anchor that to the pot, just a strong enough wire to hold that in place to keep it from tipping. So if a person were to buy this, they can select out any of these branches they wanted and remove that if they want, or keep them all, just as long as they can water and fertilize this appropriately. They can finish wiring these branches out into a position they want, and boom, Bob's your uncle. But that's how I do my creations, so that the new owner can finish up the plant for themselves instead of it being my creation. So anyway, this is a Serissa, root over rock. Okay, I've got it covered up with moss, but you can see some of the roots showing here, and the roots come through here all the way down. And as time goes on, I'll reveal the roots, remove some or all of the moss, depending on what I need. But again, this is really not super styled, but even as I look at it now, I'm seeing that this is going to be kind of like a topiary kind of cutting. This is all meshed together, weaved together, 6, 8, 10 branches that were coming out just like this one, but I chose to weave this together to make one thicker branch. And I've already cut this back this year, and again now it's springing out again, and I'm watering it daily. I fertilize it basically as I think about it, but it gets fertilized several times in a season. And this right here, that is a rock that's fully carved, and yes, that's a hole straight through it. You can see the red bend behind it, and that's kind of carved out almost like a horse's head or something like that. And then there's a hole in the bottom that goes all the way through to the other side. But again, Serissa, root over rock. And these were long roots that I grew over time, and you can see some of the roots here at the bottom, and there's the other side of the holes. You can see the roots in here, the mass. See, but I grew these in containers. Part of the time they were in the ground, but I grew them in containers for several years, and then removed them from the containers, attached them to the rock, and basically now even the attach points that I put them on with is not needed, because the roots are fully adhered to the rocks now. And this was made about a year after these two. I carved that rock into an arch, and I removed another, well, a plant from a container that I had in a group setting. Okay, this was a multiple tree group planting that I had done a grove with, and when I got the brilliant idea of putting it on this carved arch rock, I just grabbed it and pulled it from its container, and boom, here I am. So anyway, Serissas, a lot of different features, a lot of different uses. Hold on, there's another Serissa. I didn't paint the rock blue. I got that from someone else. And another configuration, and another rock and configuration. And again, I don't really concern myself about the top styling of the plant. I'm concerned about the attachment to the rock, because that is the feature that most impresses me. The rest of it is not really important to me, because I can make it into any style or design, whether it's an upright, whether it's really close to the trunk, just a little bush or mushroom type top, or something extending forward like this in a cascade or semi-cascade. And here's another example, a larger rock, more of a clinging type root exposure than, you know, root over rock kind of thing. So this is on the side mainly, and you know it's growing well if weeds can grow in the midst of it. So that's what we have here. But anyway, that's that. And I'm going to try to show you just an exposed root situation. There you have it right there. This is just an exposed root situation, and I've got this wired right now because this is relatively new. The plant is years old, okay, but I potted this up about a month now, 3 weeks to a month. And so to stabilize this it's early, to stabilize this in the pot, I pulled wire through the pot and anchored it that way. The wire can be cut after the plant is fully set, and not a problem. And again, these are more root over rock configurations. There's another exposed root with an accent rock on the side of it, and that is a large root planting, just dug up about a week ago, potted it, and you can see already that I've got regrowth. These are new leaves coming out, so it's very active. And again, you can see the lid of this bin, okay, it holds moisture, it keeps the humidity up around the plant, and that's part of the way that I do my soak. Different trees there, but those are air layers that I just took off of some Japanese maples. But you see the water is there, is hydrating everything, and it's keeping the humidity up. And I leave it in as long as I want to, okay. It's just like you tell a home chef you want their recipe. They say, I use my brain to hold my recipes. I don't measure anything, I just do it by eyesight. You know, it's by experience. Well, as far as me leaving this in the moisture, the only concern I have is for breeding mosquitoes. So again, 4 days or longer, I'll change the water. But in the meantime, I'll just shoot water in it as I'm watering the area to freshen up the oxygen level in the pot. And again, you can see here some Serissas I just dug and potted in the bin with the moisture in it. Now again, this area, you can see right here, the line right there and the greenery up here, that's almost a foot in elevation from there to there. These Serissas right here that you see right here, I had growing in this area around this maple tree. And so these are long roots that I purposefully grew in a area that's elevated. I brought soil in here, I piled it up to make a deep growing environment. And again, I just come in and cut that. And for me, that's good also, because now I'm actually damaging and cutting the roots of that maple tree, which creates a finer root system. So, and this is another root over rock carving that I did, and this one I really put in some time and effort. I've got the roots traveling from one side to the other of that rock in the open carving, and the top extends out, which can be styled into virtually any style that a person wants. And I even looped one branch around and brought it back down and around just to give some points of interest. This is rooted, and it could actually be severed from this part, and that will be a totally separate plant. But you see the roots, that's the appeal. And so now this I've got lashed to the rock to keep it in close. These branches will continue to grow, and especially if I were to sever this, then the energy would stop here and would give me longer branches faster. And that is the object here, to create shoots coming out this way, and to give more of a fuller, lush appearance. We're getting ready for the hurricane coming into the Gulf this weekend, Sunday, between Mississippi and Louisiana, and it's starting to rain right now. And so I've done this in haste, but I've kept my word to try and get a video with Serissas. Hey there. And Serissas are easy, you know. I'm sure a lot of people have issues with their plants or whatever, but as long as you keep your plant healthy, it's going to stave off most pests and diseases, and you don't have a real issue to contend with. If you don't baby the plant, and if you don't spend $1,000 on a gallon of soil just to try to get one of these things to grow, you'll be fine. You know, in fact, I'll show you something right here. See that orange sand over there? Yep. I ended up having to haul that in, but for years, you know, that's how I root a lot of my plants. That is the foundation soil that contractors use when they're building houses or setting a foundation. They put that stuff down and pack it in, and that's all I use. I tried the white builder sand, and I don't like that as much, you know. Plus it molds quicker than this stuff does. This has clay in it and the white builder sand mixed, okay? So, and the clay has other minerals in it, so that helps as a fungicide, if you will. And this stays cleaner longer. Even when leaves and such fall over it during reuse, it still stands up and holds better. In the big box stores, they sell a more coarse sand similar to this, and I've used that and it works okay. And what I do after the organic material builds up in the pot after several uses, and this is over time, I just take that same sand, add it to my recovered bonsai mix, and I grow my plants in. Okay, again, this is me. This is me. I'm not spending $40 or $50 on a gallon of bonsai mix, you know, the akadama and all of the pumice and the top quality stuff, because it's not available to me locally. So I'm just saying, perhaps you want to consider what can you get locally to grow your plants in, to root your plants. You know, I see some people try using the perlite as a rooting mix. Unless you pretty well got a consistent or a professional misting system, growing system, it is difficult, because that perlite requires a lot of moisture to actually initiate your rooting system. In other words, it has to hold moisture first before you can put plants in it to root as you water and mist it, okay? And then it's just too tough, okay? And so I use the sand, okay? And I've chosen this sand over other types of sand. So you just have to find out what you can root in your areas. I mean, quite frankly, you don't need anything to root plants in if you keep the moisture up. I've had crepe myrtles that I was clipping on, and one piece fell into a black gallon pot under one of my benches, it rooted in there on its own. Why? Because I water in the area a lot. I've grown plants around here in just the open rim of a cut down pot, okay, and it works. You know, I might put it on a floor tile or something like that, and there's no issue. Okay, so I'll take a gallon pot like this, cut it about right there, and then that rim I invert it, and just this part here where my little finger is, from there down is my pot, and I'll place this like on a flat surface, be it a floor tile like that, and this part is an actual pot now, which I'll use for a different plant. But the cutoff piece is, this piece up here is just trash for the most part, but there's so much trash around right now that I tend to try and recycle as much as possible, and that also saves me money on buying supplies. So recycle. I'll show you a recycle bin right now. See that black square bin there? That is the catch bin of a lawnmower, a mulching lawnmower, okay? And that's the other part of it right there. I separated the two. That's the bottom part, and that's the mid part. This has no bottom in it, and you can see part of the plastic and the ground fabric I've got under there to help hold that together. And I've grown, you know, even my trident maples in this before. You see how large this tree is. Okay, that's the office roller floor deal that you sit your chair on and you roll around on it. Somebody threw that out at my former work location. Hey, good protecting. And see, so I recycle stuff, and it's okay. So at any rate, those are Serissas, and they're easy to grow. I don't have a fungus issue with them. Angel trumpet. And so I don't see any problem with growing Serissas. Oh, also I keep these outside all year long. No, I'm not taking them in the house. I'm not babying them with the greenhouse kind of thing. Only a very few things I keep in a greenhouse, which are succulents and tropicals. So if I got a Brazilian rain tree or jade plants, like the jade plants I showed earlier, those will go in the greenhouse. And I could even, depending on, you know, what's going on with the greenhouse, I could even bring some of those in the house and keep them in a sunny, warm location. But if they're not tropical, they're staying outside. So the Serissas will lose their leaves, so they're semi deciduous, depending on where you're located, you know. But again, the typical light freeze from basically the southern region, you know, below Atlanta, I would say, all the way to the central part of Texas and south, through, you can say, across to South Carolina, North Carolina. These should do fine on the outside with minimal protection on the outside. If they're under trees, they'll be fine. You know, they'll come back. And that's pretty much that. Okay, Serissas, easy to care for. Pink, single flower, double flower white, single flower white. Yasabusa, single, very light pink, and that's what I have here. Okay, These are double flowers here, and the pink is not blooming, but I do have single flower whites around somewhere, but they're not blooming right now. So, oh yeah, just as a by the way, the spring flush on your blooms for me has been the best part of the season when it comes to the flowers coming out. I mean, they go like gangbusters. And here's a secret: the way to keep these healthy and vigorous is to cut them back. Okay, I'm not saying chop it down. You cut back the branches, the secondary, and depends on where the tertiary is in your design, you cut back the tertiary. So like this, I can cut this entire branch back in here somewhere, okay, and be fine. Okay, like that. But you don't want to, generally speaking, you don't want to go chopping the trunk. And I mean, if you want to, that's fine. You could change the style a little bit and let the whole plant grow and regrow and change up some. Nothing wrong with that. But just to keep your plant fresh, pinch the tips or cut them back. Once your design is set, cut back the leaders. So anyway, I've been saying so and anyway, but I keep looking at these Serissas and I keep seeing very nice trees that I've got hid in here someplace, like this one. That's the thing about the way I grow stuff. Wherever I happen to put it together or take a picture, that's where I leave it. I ain't moving junk around all day. I got work to do. I got fun to have. And so I took pictures up here because I got construction going on in the back, which I normally would take it on the backstop back there. And so yeah, I kind of forgot about this being in here. As far as specifically, I didn't forget that it was here. Some of my friends or acquaintances say, how in the world can you remember all of these plants? It's because I live with them. I'm outside more than I'm inside, and I deal with them more than I deal with you. So what's your name again? Alrighty, folks, that is my little Serissa adventure. Fertilized, nothing special, just a general water soluble fertilizer, you know, half strength or weaker. The more often that you fertilize it, make the water soluble fertilizer even weaker. Okay, generally speaking, if you use the water soluble fertilizer at full strength, you're not going to damage these things. It's not set up that way. They won't harm or burn. I mean, the plants will get, I mean, it's the greenest green that you would ever see. Even the trunks will turn green to a degree, but you're not going to kill the plant with the water soluble fertilizer. If you put too much of that pelleted stuff on there or granular fertilizers or whatever, yeah, you could damage your plants with those. Okay, but I mean, I'm speaking from experience. Okay, and I'm the mad scientist of bonsai. So what do? I experiment. I see how far I can push junk. Because guess what? When I kill a plant around here, the cops ain't coming to get me. There's no bonsai patrol. Even though, I mean, I hear some crazy stuff on these websites and forums or whatever. Myths and nonsense. In a lot of cases, people hear stuff and they just repeat it. But then again, here I am about to get on to my soapbox. They're plants. I love doing what I do with the plants, but they're plants. They don't cry, they don't yell or scream. They don't suffer in the sense of a sentient being, or an animal, okay? And in most of the cases, cutting them back just invigorates them. That's why the fruit and nut tree industries, they whack those trees back after 30 or 40 years of growing or whatever, and let them regrow from. Have you heard that olive trees last a century, even more, a millennia? Why? Because they cut the tree back periodically, cut it down to a stump. It regrows from that point, and it regenerates. So, like my Serissa in the back, it regenerates. I cut pieces off of it, it regrows. I cut more, it regrows. I don't really bother it now because all these things staring at me. But anyway, how many times now have I said bye? Well, anyway. Oh yeah, here we go. These are just some little doofers that I'm working on. This is a Yatsubusa in a little bitty pot that I keep right here by the water. This little fella right here, that's a root over rock. This was actually in that black tray, that little drain tray underneath the miniature jade, and I kind of hijacked the tray and used it for that project. But anyway, the roots are growing down on this rock, and because I felt that I wasn't going to be around for a while working with this, I took it off of that tray just to let the roots grow again. But I'll pull that out soon enough and reveal the roots on that. But again, Serissa, that's a little thing. I had one fella to email me, and I was selling the Serissa as a starter, this and that, and he said, first of all, that's not even a starter, it's a liner. And I said, okay, all right, so tell me your experience in the plant industry. Tell you what, when I send you your plant, I'll send you a small cutting of a Serissa, a starter, and I want you to create a bonsai out of it this week. I never heard back from that person. Okay, I made this at the same time. That is about double the size since then. So don't try to teach the teacher unless you come correct. Okay. Another person said water becomes stagnant because of atrophication. Okay, I understand words too. You could use atrophication. Okay, the oxygen level atrophies it, diminishes it, but eutrophication is a better word. Okay, so you trust your barber, you trust your doctor, or your hairdresser in the other case. You trust your butcher. Trust your mad scientist of bonsai. Okay, I know what I'm talking about, because the stuff I don't know, I don't talk about it. I don't tell you that so and so over here said this or that. I tell you what I said, and I tell you because I know, because this is what I do. All of these plants I grew from cuttings, or a little, whether a cutting or whether it was a gallon plant that I bought years ago, 12, 15 years ago, whether it was a cutting, whether it was a throwaway plant that I rejuvenated and regenerated, whether I started it from seeds from other plants. I do this because I love growing plants, and I love sharing what I do with other people. That tree in the round pot, that's the top out of that tree. I took that as almost a 2-inch cutting when I dug this up. They were smaller now. The trees were smaller, and it's been about 15 years almost now since that time. and that just rooted, okay, because I set my hand to root it, and then I've been growing this. That was a seedling almost 30 years ago that I bought and have grown since then, okay. So this is what I do day in, day out, because I enjoy it. And again, this is the last time I'm going to say goodbye. Have a nice bonsai day. All right. This was a bad delivery issue with a Serissa. It went to Arizona. It took only took a day to deliver it, but it took it took more than a week of delay before they delivered it. It was some kind of crazy delay in the shipping. So it's just like the man said on his way down after he fell off the multi-story building. So far so good until he hit the ground, right? Well, it didn't take but a day to deliver it, but the delay before it, you get it? You get it? Thank you. But anyway, this is another example of trust your mad scientist. If I tell you that the plant is okay, that it will survive, yeah, it's going to be changed somewhat. It will survive. This is growing all the way up to the tip here so far, and even here. The general plant has not changed. A few tips here and there is nothing, okay? But the general plant has not changed. Now, and I understand, if you buy something and you see it in a certain condition, that's what you look for, that's what you expect. But these are live plants. This is not a blender from your local store, okay? You don't want the lid missing off your blender. You know, you don't want the suction hose to be missing off your vacuum cleaner for the attachments. But this is a living plant, and you're going to have tips and things like that to break, be damaged or whatever. And no matter what any shipper does or seller, is up to the carrier to get it there, you know, short of the person not tying the plant down or pot down or wrapping it well enough. But when you send something and you expect 2 or 3 days on the delivery, and it shows up after 7 days, 8 days or whatever, then that's on the carrier, okay? And so as the buyer, you got to understand, don't blame your seller once the thing is dropped off. Blame the carrier, okay? Fuss at them. But anyway, that's a Serissa. It's not healthy, but it's growing back. It's coming back, and it's coming back to the basic of the plant. All right, that's that.